So Tony, thrilled to be here and actually, covering e-commerce and checkout, as this was, among others, one of the businesses I led for a major pay tech in Europe. And today with me, actually an amazing panel, which I would like to welcome on stage. Vincent from PayPal, Sergio from lastminute.com, and Alexi from TUI. Thank you. So actually, should we just get a quick introduction? Vincent.
Yeah, good morning everyone. I'm Vincent, I'm the Managing Director for PayPal in the UK. I have a little bit more than 15 years of payment and commerce experience, and well, my job is pretty much to work with our global and local team to deliver payment innovation across our 30 million accounts in the UK, across all the segments, from consumer to small businesses to the very large companies in the UK.
Excellent. Alexi.
Hi, I'm Alexi. I'm the Head of Technology for Payment Platforms and Mobile Apps at TUI Group, so that covers our 11 major markets globally. TUI is the world's largest holiday company, so we are responsible for sending around 15 million customers on holiday each summer. Yeah, fantastic place to be, and I think really keen to dive into payment methods, checkout experience, how we optimize that, payment orchestration, yes or no. So looking forward to it.
Excellent customer footprint here. That's Sergio.
Hi all, Sergio Signoretti, Chief Financial Officer and Head of Payments at lastminute.com. In the company since 6 years and a half, so it's quite a while, and managing all the finance, more traditional part, and all the payment part, which means relation with acquirer, processors, issuers as well, and so on. 10 years of background as a CEO before, among which CEO of an electronic money institution in Italy, which was managing prepaid B2C payment cards. So I come from, let me say, the payment industry. Okay. So
excellent. So you can see why I'm so excited about the panel. So Vincent, let's start. E-commerce, over the last 10 years or so, growth rates between 15-25% year on year. I also know, though, that PayPal is actually running and has developed an index looking at development spending patterns. Could you share with us some of the findings and the highlights? Also, if you can look specifically at Gen Z and Gen Y, and tell us a little bit, what you have learned by looking at, your research.
Yeah, thanks, Flavia. As you said, every year we publish what we call the PayPal e-commerce index that tries and understand the behavior of consumers when it comes to their payment habits or e-commerce habits in the UK and across Europe. So we interviewed more than 2,000 consumers and checked in with roughly 600 UK businesses as well to understand if their expectations stack up with what we expect to see. And we got some very interesting findings. So I'm going to start with the ones that are not so drastically different from what we have in mind, and go to the most interesting ones, I would say. So the first one, which is online spending, is actually keeps on increasing in the UK and across Europe. If we look on average, a UK e-commerce consumers in the UK would spend around £407 per month. This is a 17% increase compared to last year. The interesting fact here is that if you look across Europe, I mean, the UK consumers are spending more online than pretty much, any other e-commerce users across Europe. The second, is Germany. Germany with 328 euro per month, growing at 11%. France lagging, very behind. I'm French as well, so I can comment on that one. 283, growing at 5% year on year. An interesting fact here is that even if that spending is increasing year on year, the way people spend becomes quite different. In particular, now we see consumers spending more, with the crisis, the cost of living crisis, spending more on non-discretionary spend. So we see bill payments, on insurance, phone, really taking a big chunk of the spending. 58% of UK consumers now pay their bill online, overtaking more traditional verticals like fashion retail, for example, at 57%. Interestingly, at the bottom, we still see home and garden. Only 25% of payment is done online. Travel, actually, interestingly, 29%, so still, at the bottom of the list. In terms of spending habits, what we see as well is consumers use more and more social media now to make a purchase. Last year, 46% of all the UK consumers used the social media to make a purchase. And this is heavily driven by the younger generation, the Gen Z. 71% of Gen Z use social media to make a purchase. Now let me go a little bit, into the, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Y, the boomer, differences that we observe. In terms of spending pattern, I mean, what we see is obviously Gen Z, spending less. Only 20% of them, would spend more than £400 a month, right? Which is what you would expect. On average, 30% of all the other segments, would spend more than £400 a month on average. And another very, very interesting, fact that we observe is people are more likely now to shop at merchants that connect with their values, with merchants that support causes, and that's particularly true for the Gen Z segment in particular. Gen Z claim that they would be less likely to shop to a merchant that doesn't align, by 46% if they don't align with their, their core value, which is pretty interesting. Now there are a couple of myths, I wanted to, to burst when it comes to Gen Z in particular. First of all, we tend to believe, well, Gen Z, they just want to check out, quickly. They don't care about security, right? For me, this was probably one of the most mind-blowing facts from the report. 58% of Gen Z believe that actually security is one of their main consideration when they shop online. So Gen Z, 58%. If you look at Gen Y, it's 54%. Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, my generation, would be 50%, and boomers, around 50%. So a lot of concerns from the Gen Z generation around security, and 35% of them, one of their key concerns is see their credentials being shared, outside the merchant where they shop at. 35%, consider that as a big concern. And the last fact, I wanted to bring related to Gen Z, they are actually the most patient, shoppers, and the less likely to drop off if they see an experience that actually has friction. Only 21% of Gen Z say they would drop out of the checkout experience if there is too much friction. This is to be compared with 28% from the Gen Y, generation. So a lot of, thought-provoking, data from that market survey.
With that in mind, Sergio, working you for basically a e-commerce only operator. What are the recommendations that you will have, thinking specifically about Gen Z for the audience, and any experience you want to share from lastminute.com?
Yeah, I think the value, in fact, of the conversation can be this, no? So can be share what is the lesson learned, and
I think we will,
please. I have a tone of voice which is low, okay? So you can use that. So essentially, maybe just a couple of words of context, about our business. So of course we are an online-only travel agent. So we are in the same sector with TUI. but we sell dynamic packages, which means that the customer can combine dynamically the flight and the hotel without any limitation in terms of dates, flexibility, and so on. This is our core business, okay? We are present in, we sell dynamic packages in over 30 markets. We process approximately 4 billion euro per year, serve 10 million customers per year, out of which there is Gen Z as well, but not only Gen Z, okay? So at the end, what we need to offer in terms of customer experience, convenience, payment methods, of course, we need to take into account that it is really spread out mass market. And then, yes, we can adapt our strategy in terms of content, in terms of pricing, in terms of, let me say, payment method as well to youngsters, but we need to take into account that is a much broader audience, the one that we are talking to. Then when we talk about young people, when we talk about Gen Z, we need to take into account that they like to travel, okay? First of all, they like to travel even more than the others. They like to go sun and beach. They like to have a city break vacation, maybe as other customers as well. They like convenience, and so it's very important to be competitive also in terms of price to quality ratio. When we talk about convenience, it's not just price. It's not just flash sales. It's not just best deals, but it's also convenience in terms of customer experience when paying. Which means that, for example, if you consider that the average booking value for a holiday package is in the region of 1,600, 2,000 euro, the introduction of buy now, pay later, okay, which is essential for holiday packages conversion, okay, has boosted conversion dramatically. So, of course, we need to tailor also the payment experience when we get to convenience in order to let the service be adopted by targets that we are targeting, okay? And so the buy now, pay later penetration, which has reached also 50% of our sales, okay, in dynamic packages, is something that is absolutely a key success factor. So that's a key lesson learned. The other is that these guys search on mobile and shop on mobile. So the improvement in general of the app content, the app customer experience, the, let me say, the exclusivity of the content that we vehiculate on the app in terms of advantages is something that is key to target that type of audience and to retain that type of audience. So that I would say is there is maybe one last part, which is something that we are doing related to Gen Z, which is the fact that they like to share their experiences. So they like to share the experiences on social platforms. And so we have adopted forms, of user-generated content where customer can share with the rest of the audience on our platform the experiences while traveling. And this is, of course, creating let me say, a viral, synergy, which is useful and generating value in our view.
Very interesting. So coming from, similar industry, Alex, if you think about, checkout more in general, what have been, your experiences in TUI, and what do you think is really interesting, to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think firstly, just sort of broadly similar to what the guys are saying. So it's interesting around the customer segmentation. Actually, some of those stats were surprising for me, especially around sort of Gen Y and Gen Z, because what we see in TUI specifically is sort of traditionally what you would expect. So your Gen X like sort of their direct debit payment method. They actually like the human interaction, so they're far more likely to go into a retail store to make a payment on a payment terminal, and they're far more likely to make a payment over the contact center. Omnichannel is really important for us there, and that is still our core customer segmentation. We're looking ahead to Gen Z, but actually that is still our core customer segmentation. So we want to be able to deliver that omnichannel experience. So you start your booking online, you complete it on the contact center maybe to make your payment, or you start it in the retail store, you go home and finish it by call center. Then with Gen Y, with millennials, it's kind of some of that, but then we offer more of like a checkout online experience. So you're in the retail store, but you have a pay by link sent to your mobile device so that you can authenticate, and actually you're making an online payment, because that customer segment are more comfortable with making an online payment, and that kind of plays into the security piece, right? Because if they're doing a biometric or they're checking out on their phone, maybe it's Apple Pay, but they're in the store, I suppose they have that added element of trust. For Gen Z, for us, what we see is all around the digital wallet. So either PayPal, we see a really good conversion rate on PayPal. Yes, there's a higher cost, which merchants have to be aware of, but there's an increased conversion, and there's additional customers, incremental customers that are brought into TUI directly via PayPal, so it far outweighs the cost of having that payment method. Then Apple Pay, absolutely key, and buy now, pay later, as you mentioned, actually across all customer segments, buy now, pay later, and PayPal's, pay later offering has been really successful for TUI. I think in terms of other ways to optimize the checkout and other things that we're focused on, really it is all around kind of speed and reduced friction. For us, that's what we're going after. Interesting to hear, that perhaps Gen Z are willing to wait more. Maybe they're more exposed to technology, more patient, perhaps. I don't know. But we're going after really the most sort of simplified user experience that we can have for customers. So keep everything within one page in terms of checkout. No redirects, no pop-outs if possible, and having everything there all in the single flow. Things like online bank transfer, very popular for us in our Nordic markets, in Belgium and the Netherlands as well. We haven't tried it yet in the UK, but I think that'll be interesting, as we go through. We have sort of varying payment schedules, so you start to think about how we could cater for that with open banking. But yeah, I think for us really, digital wallets and buy now, pay later, combination of the two are the future that we're focused on for e-commerce. Mobile app as well, absolutely key. So for me, working across payments and the mobile app, we've got 11 mobile apps across our markets, all sitting behind a single code base. About 5 million monthly active users there, and at the moment the checkout experience is an in-app browser. So even we see 50%, I think 55% now of our online bookings are made on a mobile device, whether that starts on the app or whether that starts on a mobile browser. But for every stage that we deliver natively, so an optimized experience that keeps the customer within our app, we see an increase in conversion. So if you play that all the way through to checkout with something like PayPal or one of the other digital wallet payment methods, then we see that really having significant benefit.
Yeah. So Alexei, you talk about conversion. And Vincent, from your observatory, can you share with us, differences in conversion rates, among industry and countries, and then also, what is PayPal working on to increase conversion for the merchants?
Well, let me first, set the scene, right? When it comes to conversion, if you look at the global market, we have roughly 2.6 billion of online shoppers in the world and 4.9 billion of internet users. So that means that we have a big chunk, of people who actually are only browsing and not necessarily shopping. Every year, it's 80 million of consumers that we convert from browsers, to shoppers. So it's a big number. Converting these browsers to shoppers is the name of the game. Right? If you look at the average conversion rate, across the globe, at the moment, the conversion ratio is 3.7%. So 100% at the top of the funnel delivers 3.8% of purchase. And it's interesting to see, I looked at some of the Nielsen data. I mean, this conversion rate, really varies across industries. At the very top, you have QSR and fast food, delivery around 29% conversion, 129. If you look at, the next one is online grocery, 12%, and then you have a drop, right? Retail on average is around the 4 to 5% mark. I think, travel is probably around, and you probably confirm the data I have in mind, it's 4.1%.
Depends on what you sell. Because if it's a flight, it's much higher. If it's a holiday package, it's a bit more.
Yeah, because people are browsing, and it's all about, trying to convert these consumers into buyers. But what's interesting is really to understand where people drop off. Right? You put 100, you have 3%. So here is how it works. 100% at the top of the funnel, right? Then 44% will actually look at product pages, trying to start being interested in the product. So you have like a kind of 50% drop here. Then from product, you visit the product to you actually put something in your basket, in your cart, right? We go from 44 to 15%, right? So you have a 3x drop here. But for me, the most interesting one is when you go to basket to actually, buying. You go from 15% to this 3.6% we were talking about. So it's only 1 in 4, right? And for me, this is, like payment actually is probably one of the most, if you look at the funnel, is probably one of the most important final optimization lever for merchants. So now if we look a little bit deeper into the detail as to why would people leave the cart, right, and not complete a payment. The first reason, I think it's 27% is, so let me try and get that right. It's a lot of numbers. So 27% is about security consideration. People don't feel comfortable to actually purchase on the website. And there are some very interesting data here. Because if you ask consumers, so when it comes, when it's about data safety, data protection, who do you think is responsible? And 60% of consumers will say, well, it's the responsibility of the merchant. Now, if you ask the same customers, how comfortable are you, that the merchant is actually going to protect your data? 76% will say we're not comfortable at all, right? But now, here is the funny fact. If you ask the same question to merchants, oh, by the way, how good you think you are at protecting consumer data? So if you look at the top merchants, 83% will say, oh, we are very good, and 76% of medium-sized, merchants will say, yeah, we are very good at protecting the data. So you really see, like the big gap in terms of perception and what actually consumer, feel about data protection. If I go through, so 27% security consideration, 25% is about the experience itself, right, and the robustness of the platform. 25% of consumers say, I gave up checking out because I had a problem checking out. It was just not working. 24% of them will say, my payment method was not available. I mean, you talked about buy now, pay later, 50% of your total, checkout. I mean, we can obviously quote PayPal. I mean, but being very relevant in the market you operate is a very, very important consideration. And the rest is, removing the friction and, and all these things. So now coming back to your question, what does PayPal do about it? I mean, for us, this is kind of bread and butter, right? This is how we build, our business. Yep. We invest a lot in obviously trying to optimize conversion. I think PayPal delivers a superior conversion rate. I think it's up to, I'm going to do a little bit of selling here, 35%. More conversion than cards.
We will validate.
I'm sure, Alexei and Sergio, will validate, what I'm saying here. But for us, it's really keeping on innovating. Last year, we launched what we call Fast Lane, right? I mean, people check out with PayPal, but you have a lot of guest users, actually, who come to your website, who don't necessarily want to sign up for an account. So Fastlane is our new guest checkout experience that allows us to really streamline the experience. PayPal knows about 70% of all the consumers that come to a merchant website, right? Even without a PayPal account, because of the vaulted payment that we have in the ecosystem. And for this 70%, we can deliver up to 40% optimization of checkout speed. So there is a lot of innovation going into improving checkout, the use of AI, obviously, to to make sure that we let the good people go through and the bad people. There is a lot of fraud, out there. We block these transactions. Yeah. So a lot of innovation.
But then, Sergio, let's say, with these somehow scaring numbers, at the same time opportunity numbers. What is lastminute.com doing in order to optimize the checkout and the conversion so that those numbers are going to be very different from the average in the industry?
It's a continuous challenge now to try to maximize conversion on one side without risking too much.
Yeah.
Okay. So because that's the point. So I put the hat of a CFO for a second. Okay. So we have an average conversion on the fraud and payment, so including the fraud prevention piece of an average minimum 90%. Okay, so this is what we are having, minimum, okay, from 90% onwards. So each percentage point that we get in terms of fraud and payment conversion increase, we are talking about at least 1 million euro EBITDA. So for us, it is essential, okay, to keep, to optimize, the fraud prevention part that mostly is outsourced, because we believe that there are capabilities on the market which are better than the one that we can build up internally. And this is another important topic when we will get to the buy now, pay later piece that I want to tackle again. So the combination of make versus buy. Okay, so on the market there are very huge competencies on the fraud prevention part. What we do in terms of optimizing conversion, first of all, is route the transaction where we expect is more efficient in terms of conversion and in terms of cost. Okay, so we have a multi-processor and multi-acquiring structure, as I would say most of the merchants in the industry. We have developed internally, intelligent routing systems which address the transaction where we should expect the conversion is higher, with the best cost associated to the type of card that the customer is using for that specific transaction. Then, going back to the buy now, pay later, the other important thing to mention is the combination between partnership and insourcing. No? So the solution that I was referring before is a solution that we have developed internally, but it's quite, I would say, conservative in terms of risk. So it's something that we offer only with the completeness of installment repayment pre-departure. Okay, on the market, of course, there are the PayPal solution, which are working very well. There are players who offer also post-departure repayment solutions that can be targeted to certain customer and to certain bookings, okay, that are more, let me say, inclined to be served with that type. And so also with this respect, optimize the type of buy now, pay later solution that you offer, depending on the type of customer, the type of vacation, the type of average booking value, and on the scoring of the customer that you need to do in order to understand whether it's a risky one or not, it's something that is key.
Yeah, interesting. I'm just conscious of time, so I would say I ask the last question to Alexi, but get ready with your questions. I think we have Kate and Co with mics, so just one question for Alexi and then I come to the audience. Alexi, we talk about technology. I cannot end the panel without asking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I go straight to one of the last questions I had for us today. What is two experience, what you're looking for, anything you can share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely, hot topic, so bound to come up. I'm sure it won't be the first time today or tomorrow. In terms of, what we're doing at TUI, I think, majority of retailers or brands at the moment are already, if not already live, they're integrating with ChatGPT, and they are offering some sort of kind of conversational, especially in travel, around inspiration and experiences. So what we have at TUI, we're integrated with ChatGPT in our mobile app, so customers can have a conversation and they can receive recommendations around excursions and activities in resort. That's what we have at the moment. We will be expanding that later this year out across all of our package holidays, so the idea is that customers can actually be offered in the response purchasable content in terms of a package holiday, so they can start to talk. The difficulty that we have and where we're really investing a lot this year is around search and the future of search. So search, especially in the travel industry, has been fairly rigid and fairly static for years and years and years, right? You have fairly fixed parameters, a couple of variables around destination, where you want to start, departure, maybe number of days. And that search panel, you go into any travel app, any travel website, aggregator, whatever it may be, that search panel looks exactly the same, and it has done for years and years and years. So what we're looking at is how we can bring AI into that, and actually the next stage and the future of search is customers want to be inspired right at the top of that funnel. We talk about where the drop-off comes. We want to inspire customers at the top of the funnel, and we want to very quickly, we are looking at a few different options because it's new and it requires a lot of investment, but either we want to inspire and have those options that can be purchased straight away, or perhaps you have something like a co-pilot, so you take them through the booking journey or the search and booking journey. So a blend, I guess, of what we have today with ChatGPT and the traditional search, where they can interact, ask questions, and they can be guided through a search and book process. So there's a few things we're looking at. I mean, it's really, really exciting, and putting that natively in the app as well, as you say, starting to offer loyalty schemes where we can bring customers back through the app, huge reduction in our cost of sales, huge reduction in advertising costs, and also a conversion driver. So it is the future, yeah, you know, it's going to be a hot topic. It's just about how quickly we can harness it. I'm also excited to see what comes out of it outside of, you know, you look at some of the big players, right? It's going to be really interesting to see what comes out in travel and other industries, because we can only move so quickly, right? So that is going to be fascinating to observe.
So watch space. So any questions from the audience? I can see a hand raised here.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Austin Elwood from NatWest. Just going to ask the open banking question, if that's okay now. You mentioned it briefly, that it's sort of not something that you're ready to experiment with within the UK. We've obviously got the industry as a whole and the PSRs pushing for it. Joe Garner, who was on earlier, referenced, the idea of choice in the market is really important. But for that adoption piece, buy now, pay later is increasing conversion. What needs to be delivered from open banking, from a functionality, from a user journey perspective, to actually enable and functionally help for customers to make that yes decision when they're buying?
Great. I think Alex is ready.
Okay, sure, yeah. So I think there's two things. So we are using open banking today at TUI in the UK around direct debit. So we have the automated direct debit setup flow where customer can authorise with their bank using biometric, and they don't have to manually input their direct debit credentials, which has been a success and does work. In terms of online bank transfer as a payment method or bank-to-bank payments, as I said, in some of our markets, in Finland, this is absolutely the default, and across the rest of the Nordics, even in Belgium, Netherlands as well, these online bank transfers are really prevalent. For me as a merchant, I would love to see it in the UK because it would be cheaper than probably the rest of our payment methods, right? So I would really like to see it, but where we are is it's just not a priority because there's no customer demand for it. We don't see it, we really, really don't see it. There are a couple of examples, retailers, online retailers, where it's there. I use it myself at every opportunity, but it's just these kind of sweep and personal transfers, that kind of thing. But for us at the moment, if we look at our kind of e-commerce strategy, it just isn't a priority. There are no customers asking for it in my view, but we would love to take it on.
If I can add one thing to what Alexei was saying. I mean, for us it's slightly different because we believe there is a huge potential for the account-to-account payments, for the instant payments, not only in the UK. UK is our primary market in terms of sales. Germany is the second. Of course, the penetration of instant payments in the UK is much higher. Okay, so UK is in the region of, I think, 10% at least. Okay, but it's a matter of efficiency. It's a matter of cost saving. So the real point at the end is how to help the customer to choose to pay through instant payments, through account-to-account, and incentivize this type of payment. Because for us, we are talking about a huge saving per transaction versus, we're talking about 50 cents versus 20 euro if you talk about the acceptance of a card on a holiday package. Okay, so that is where I think we need to focus on. So move the customer base towards the adoption more and more of the account-to-account solution, because this is strategic in terms of efficiency generation in my view.
Excellent. I think we can get away with one last question. Let's see. Don't see this area. Any more questions? No.
Maybe if I
so
add
Vincent,
to the question, just a very quick one. I think there are two things that are missing at the moment for open banking to really take up. The consumer protection angle. I think it's a big gap, at the moment in the market. Cards, you pay with card, you have the chargeback. It's all very codified, other payment methods. I think that's still missing for open banking, and one of the reasons why consumers are not adopting. And the second one is the commercial model. I think we haven't figured it out, yet. So I think there is a little bit of reluctance from players in the market to go into it until they figure out how to actually have a sustainable business model behind.
Excellent. On that note, a round of applause for the panelists, and thanks a lot to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you to the Payment Association for having invited.